All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the 2019 ASWSU Presidential Debate. My name is Zach Anderson. I'm going to be your moderator tonight. Tonight's debate is a chance for the two campaigns to discuss their ideas and to challenge each other on the issues. It's also a chance for you to ask the candidates where they stand on the issues. Both campaigns have been working hard since the election began earlier last month to try and win your vote. Their goals and ideas will be what guides this organization for the next year, and in turn, creates a foundation of what student life will be like here on our campus. ASWSU is responsible for directing hundreds of thousands of dollars of student money towards programs and events, advocacy efforts, and more. President and Vice President is a full-time job that covers full in-state tuition costs. They will also oversee a team of around a dozen paid executive staff members and work with the ASWSU Senate to write and pass legislation. They're the point of contact between the students and university leaders. Over 100 men and women have held this job before them, and tonight will be one step closer to deciding who will be next in line. On Tuesday morning at 12 a.m., the online voter system will open, and every undergraduate in Pullman will have until Wednesday by 7 p.m. to cast their ballots. With that, we can go ahead and introduce the candidates. First is Mariela Frias Gomez and running mate Kamel Naputo. And Quentin Bercampus and running mate Jordan Prescott. Welcome both. Candidates, the rules for tonight's debate are as followed. Each question will be directed to a specific candidate by name. You will then have 1 full minute to respond. At any point during your minute, you can defer your time to your running mate or yield it back to me, the moderator. A bell will ring when your time is up. Now, if during your response you mention your opponent, even indirectly, or if they want to respond to a point you made that is relevant to the original question, then I will allow for a 30-second rebuttal period, but that is at my discretion. If at any point I feel we've diverted too far from the original question, I will move on to another topic. And remember, most of these questions will be asked to both campaigns, so wait until the other has had their chance to answer before trying to submit a rebuttal. Throughout the night, if any candidate says something that I believe was unclear or needs more context, I may ask a follow-up or clarifying question. At the conclusion of tonight's debate, both campaigns will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Now how that time is used is up to your discretion. The structure of tonight's debate will include 3 categories: finance and community, then safety, and finally leadership. With that, we can go ahead and get started. By virtue of a coin toss, the Bercampus-Prescott campaign, this first question is for you, and Quentin, I will start with you. What do you believe is the most critical issue facing our student body today? In 1 minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe the most important issue facing us right now is the mental health crisis that's happening on campus and across this country as well. I'm sure a lot of you have tried using the mental health services on campus, and a lot of times you go in there, and at times they'll be able to see you, and a lot of times they say, okay, come back later this week or come back next week, right? And we've made improvements over the last few years, but it's fundamentally a problem that if students that need mental health services, they need to see a counselor because this is probably the most stressful time of our lives. If you don't have a counselor available to you, that's a major problem for all students here. And that is the biggest thing, that if ASWSU can solve this problem over the next year of making sure that students can see a mental health counselor, then I think we can walk away saying ASWSU has done its job.
Thank you. And Marielle, 1 minute.
Sorry, it's Mariela.
Marielle, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I personally feel that the Cougar experience here at Washington State, of every Coug, is not being prioritized. We have students who face issues with safety. We have students who face issues with mental health. We have students who face issues with financial aid. We have students who face issues with different categories across campus and different issues. We cannot prioritize one thing over the other because every student at Washington State has an issue, and we have to be advocating and working to fix all these issues. We can't pick or choose if we're going to run to be student body president and vice president. We need to work to help and improve the lives and Cougar experience of every Coug at Washington State and make this university inclusive and welcoming for every student to come.
Thank you. We'll go back to the Bercampus-Prescott campaign. Jordan?
So as Quentin stated before, mental health is of utmost importance, and as well as just students knowing where to even access these resources, knowing how to go to different programs, different resources, knowing how to set themselves up for success, because that's ultimately why we are here. We're here to have a job lined up, have an internship lined up after this, and not a lot of students know where to even go to find these different programs or resources. And so basically, that's what we are really trying to do here. We're really trying to make sure that ASWSU has a presence on campus and in students' lives, making sure that students know where to go, how to set themselves up for success, and ultimately be successful here as a Coug.
Thank you. Camille?
I will go off with Mariela and what she has been saying about our Cougar experience. Our Cougar experience here, it cultivates what our campus climate is, what mental health issues we are dealing with. And so like it's a bunch of these interlocking problems that mesh together, and what can we do to really tackle this? We have to tackle it at the core, at the root of it. And that may not really be ASWSU, but it really is our Cougar experience. How can we improve our Cougar experience so that way our education is more accessible to all, it's inclusive to all, the environments that we work in, that we step into, that we study in, is it welcoming? Is it a positive experience for everyone? And from there, how can we go forward and be sure that every student here is here to thrive?
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to the next question. Overall, do you think it is becoming easier or harder to be an undergraduate student here at WSU? And Mariela, I'll begin with you.
Yes, personally, as an out-of-state student, I see a lot of the ways that I feel that it has been getting harder. You know, working, I work 3 jobs. I'm trying to keep my academics high. I'm trying to also be an advocate for the communities that I'm currently a part of. To me, this has been getting harder and increasingly harder every year to come. But other students on campus, they could feel differently depending on their status and depending on how they have to work with their parents and their guardians and whoever, and you know, because I have to send money home. As you know, my grandmother, she's a single parent, an immigrant from the Dominican Republic, and understanding what I have to do to also provide and to come here to this university is hard. But I'm doing it because I care. I'm doing it because I want to continue to work and I want to pursue higher education as the first person in my family to be here, to pursue higher education. And for every other Coug at this university, they might have their own experience or they might think differently, but to me, it has been getting harder. Prices get higher. Things that we have to invest in get higher.
Okay, thank you. Quentin?
Yeah, so I think it has gotten a lot harder, and the biggest thing I think is the cost of attending college. So I'm currently the Deputy Director of Legislative Affairs for ASWSU, and so what that means is basically we are lobbying our state lawmakers to try, and our top priority this year is really trying to expand the state need grant so that more students can afford to go to WSU and make sure that they aren't coming out of college with a ton of debt. Right? Because I mean, this is the first step. It's supposed to be an investment, but if we come out of college with 6 figures worth of loans, it's really hard for us to then, succeed moving forward. And so I think it is a lot harder for students to go to college now because of the financial burden that is put on them. And I think that's what I've really, had the privilege of being able to focus on as Deputy Director of Legislative Affairs is how can we convince our lawmakers to make sure that we make college more affordable for students.
All right, thank you. Camille?
I want to say that it has been getting harder. At this university, there is a lot of emphasis on our first-year students. There's a lot of programs and workshops and resources that really highlight our first-year students. But as the years go by, it kind of falls off the grid, and then we just want to make sure that our retention rates and our students graduate in May. But what can we do to really emphasize and highlight our Cougs that are out of here in May and make sure that they really do have help with addressing debt, addressing loans, addressing an opportunity lined up for them after college.
Okay. Jordan?
I would have to agree as well that it has been getting harder. As a person who also works 2 jobs and has to try to figure out academically, highly involved in her sorority as well, it's a big burden to try to go to school as well and make all these things happen because it's expensive. I know I'm paying my way through college. No one else is helping me. Having to afford college, afford my sorority on top of that, it's a lot. And also not really knowing how to access those different resources as well to help me. So I would also have to agree that it is getting harder.
Okay, so far no disagreements here. Sounds like everybody, it's getting harder. We'll move on to now the category portion. We're going to begin asking questions of finance and community. This first question: just a few weeks ago, a former ASWSU president and our current student regent voted against a nearly $10 million baseball complex proposal. He believed, with other departments across campus forced to cut their budgets to help reduce the deficit, that it wasn't right to take on more debt. Do you agree or disagree with his decision, and how do you view our university's debt as a whole? Quentin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem right now is the fact that students, we don't really have a big say in this. I think the best way to explain it is a lot of times we have a seat at the table. ASWSU is always there having a conversation with administration saying this is what students want or this is what students don't want, but too often it really doesn't matter what we say. A lot of times administration is going to move forward regardless of what our opinion is. And I think what that really gets down to is the fact that there's a big divide between ASWSU and the student body. I'm sure a lot of you are here tonight for Greek programming, right? Not because you are really passionate about ASWSU and meeting your candidates. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing on you either. I'm saying there's a big divide right now, and the fact that too many students don't know what ASWSU is doing, and then that also goes to the other side. The administration knows that. If ASWSU is talking about, we don't want this or we do want this, and the administration knows, okay, but it's a group of students, are they really speaking for all students? It's a problem. So we need to make sure that ASWSU is more connected with the community, and all students are aware of what ASWSU is doing, so that there's that unity behind all of us, so that we can communicate better with administration.
Okay, thanks, Quentin. And the question again about the university debt, Marielle, I'm sorry. I'm learning.
It's okay. I wouldn't agree with it. Why? Because we have students at this university, and I will base it off of the Drive to 25, and I keep talking about, we want to prioritize education and prioritize our students at this university. If we want to do a Drive to 25 and President Kirk Schultz wants to bring more international students, want to do a top research university, and we're not prioritizing our STEM majors at this university, that's an issue. But we want to put money into a baseball facility. These are conversations we have to have. These are conversations that we are going to continue to advocate for and make sure that students and their education is a priority at this university. And Kirk Schultz also understands that we need to be putting more money into education, into academic and professional development, and not just for first year, for second and third year, and for fourth years. Why? Because we want to graduate. We want to get this education. We are here for one reason that we all can align with, and it's education. And we need that Cougar experience to be great, and to be great for every Coug.
Okay. Jordan, we'll move on to you.
Yeah, so I think that students aren't informed of what's going on. There is this big divide between ASWSU and where that money goes to, where there is no transparency. And so basically that's what we really want to bring to the table, making sure that students are informed, making sure that students know where their money is going to at the end of the day, and making sure that they can have a say and be able to talk about these issues as well.
Okay. Camille?
Could you repeat the question?
It was, do you agree or disagree with the student regent's decision to vote against the baseball complex, and how do you view our university's debt as a whole?
Yeah, so I would go off with Mariela disagreeing as well, to go off of, let's say, our money here. Okay, 1 second. Let me gather my thoughts. So one of our pillars in our platform is increasing transparency and accountability. And so within that pillar, we have outlined in our action plan how we want to be able to increase transparency and accountability, especially with what our students are spending their money on. And we really want to highlight education, the importance of education. We are here, we are paying good money to be here because we want to be able to graduate and get out of here with a good future. To go off of that, the money can be used for and allocated towards study spaces, maybe towards Waller, and be able to improve the living in that residence hall. It can be used towards our STEM students, our resources, the equipment used in labs. So there's a lot of...
You can wrap that thought up.
Okay, there's a lot of areas in our university that needs more attention, and this baseball facility, the $10 million where it's going towards is not somewhere we should be paying attention to.
Okay, I'm going to ask a follow-up then, just for the presidential candidates. So, if you were in the student regent's position, would either of you voted the way he did? Would you have been the lone vote against that baseball complex, Quentin?
Yes, absolutely.
Mariella?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mariella. Moving on now, how would you describe the fiscal health of ASWSU, identifying its revenues and greatest expenses, and what could you do to better explain to students where their money is going? Mariella, to you.
Definitely. So one of the things that we do want to work on is increase more transparency and accountability. Work alongside our administration, and it's not just the student administration, also the faculty and staff administration, and making sure that we have a transparent administrative budget both ways so students know where their money is going to. We talk about it every year. Nothing has been done. We want to see things, we want to see change. Students aren't doing it because they don't care enough. We want to provide. We're not going to tell you that we're going to do something and not do it. We want to make sure that students are understanding where their money is going to, how they could get, whether it's on the website, whether it's easy for them to access, accessible. We want to provide those resources for students are knowledgeable and understanding where the money is going to and how it's affecting them. And that's something that is on our platform, is on our action plan, and we will work towards with not only ASWSU, but the administration as a whole within higher admin. Okay.
Okay. Quentin?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a lot of you out there that don't know this, last year we saw a massive cut to the ASWSU budget, and I think that's something that has been it's been a transition, I think, for a lot of ASWSU leaders to learn how do we represent students well when we have less funds to spend. And I think something that really is going to be, is something Jordan and I are going to really prioritize is the fact, even though we have less money, what it really means is we need to have more outreach. It doesn't cost anything for the ASWSU president and vice president to go hang out in an RHA meeting or to go do their office hours in the 4th floor of the Cub or go anywhere else. Because at the end of the day, student government, however much money is behind it, the job is to represent you and to be approachable, right? And if you don't see ASWSU on campus, then that's a fundamental problem, which is what we really want to address. We've had a big budget cut, right? And we need to be very responsible with it. But to compensate for the fact that we have less money, we need to be more outgoing, work harder to approach more students, and make sure that students know they can come to us if they have an issue or something they want addressed.
I'm going to ask a follow-up. For those of us in the room that may not know, do you know why their budget was cut? What's resulting in that?
Yeah, so the deficit that we have university-wide, ASWSU, I believe, took a cut actually a little before everyone else. And so then it was, I don't know the exact figures, but I know that basically ASWSU took a sizable chunk to basically cut everything across the table. Does that answer your question? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Okay. Camille?
Could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question is, what could you do to better explain to students where their money is going?
One specific example is with SNA fees. SNA fees is a topic that not a lot of students know about. However, that's where our tuition is going. And one way to really work on SNA is diversifying the committee, making sure that the people who sit in those committees and those meetings that delegate where this money is going is making sure that they know that where it's going and how it's affecting the choices that they're making, how it's affecting everyone on this campus. To go off of that, making sure that the people who sit on these committees are unbiased and making sure that they are not helping friends of friends and just restructuring how SNA is being run.
Thank you. Jordan?
Yeah. So basically, it just comes down to the fact that students don't know what's going on. They aren't informed. So Quentin and I really want to set up that direct transparency. We want to make sure that we have this information and we can give it to students. So something tangible that Quentin and I really want to do is implement a newsletter. And that's highlighting all the events that are going on with different RSOs, different programs within ASWSU. And so along with that comes that direct transparency of including the money that students are putting towards these different events, towards these different programs. And we really want to highlight how they're spending their money, where their money is going to in this newsletter, and set up direct transparency between ASWSU and students.
Okay. Interesting that you bring up a newsletter because that's something that's been done before, and the last campaign last year said that they wanted to do that as well. Moving on, WSU Transportation has asked ASWSU to raise the student transit fee again. However, students voted less than 2 years ago to raise it and had voted only a few years before that to raise it again. What do you believe is the reason behind the need for more transportation funding, and do you believe students receive adequate service here? And Quentin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think the second part of the question of, do you think that there are adequate transportation services? I think pretty much every single student in this room would say that there are not adequate transportation services, whether it's trying to park through 2 feet of snow or anywhere else on campus, the fact there isn't enough parking. So I think the fundamental problem, though, when you talk about constantly asking for more fees, is we don't know where that money is going. You know, we've talked a lot about transparency, and I think that's probably going to be a theme that throughout the night here. But the transportation budget is one of those things that students pay. You know, you pay your $600-700 for a parking pass for the full year, and then you're looking at it and going, where is this money going? Why am I paying this much to have someone just? I mean, I think the biggest problem we need to make sure that it's way more transparent, so that students can make an informed decision. If they come to us and say we need more funding, and this is why, and this is where we're at right now, that's one thing. But right now, I think most students feel like they're just asking for more money with no actual idea of what they're going to spend it on, or why they need what they're spending the money that they already have on. So I think biggest thing is transparency, making sure students know where all that money is going.
Marielle, do you feel the same way?
Yes, I do. Am I able to
Mhm.
talk? Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say, like, for a lot of those individuals who do live in apartment land and who do use the bus regularly in transportation, the increase is going to go into for the buses to come sooner. As you can tell, for those individuals who have to wait 20 to 30 minutes for the bus to come and you're still late for class, that's an issue. You're here to get an education, but you can't even get to class on time. That's where that money is going into. We need to continue to advocate and work on it. If it's going to benefit the students, we should be okay with it. Why? Because at the end of the day, we're here to get an education. And going back to that, we need to be more transparent in telling the students on where that money is going into and the effects of it. Why? Because the students don't know. And we need to provide that information as an organization and as an administration.
So would you support passing another raise to the transit fee?
Well, didn't it already pass?
Oh, it did?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. So.
Oh, it passed this Wednesday? Okay. Well, a little behind the time there.
Sorry.
Jordan?
Yeah. So something Quentin and I have been doing throughout this campaign process is really advocating for better transportation. So we've been at the bus stops, having coffee and donuts, and making sure that we are setting an example, if elected, to what we want to do, what we want to better, and that is transportation. I do not think that the transportation is the best it can be. I feel like we need more buses. We need to communicate, have that direct transparency, as has been repeated over and over, but that communication between Pullman and ASWSU, into making sure that students are getting where they need to go on time.
Okay, thank you. Camille?
So it passed, and I do agree with increasing the fee. The fee is around like $3, and so for each student, the price of a latte, it's not that bad. But anyways, the fact of the matter is this raise would go towards a contingency fund, and with that contingency fund, it'll be able to afford hybrid buses that they are in the works for. Truly expensive, but down the line, that's what they're aiming for. And then also as well as faster routes. I live in apartment land, and having to, look on the app and see that it's coming at 9:10, but then I have to get there a little bit earlier. But the fact of the matter is there's over 20,000 students living in this town, and not everyone can drive to campus. So like Mariela has said, this increase is supposed to benefit all students. And if it's benefiting all students, then there's no harm in that.
Can I follow up?
Sure.
So I think you mentioned that we have increased the fee multiple times over and over and over. They are always coming back asking for more, and yet we haven't seen that improvement. The fact that they've come in and said, hey, we need more student money, and yet here we are again saying, hey, we need more student money. I think we need to start looking at this transportation problem not as the fact we don't have enough funding, as the fact that there's a fundamental flaw in the way the system is set up. And I think it is $3. It's a latte. But at the end of the day, if it's $3 now and then $3 next year and then over and over and over and we're never solving the problem, throwing money at it isn't ever going to be the solution.
Because I gave Quentin a follow-up, would you like to take some time?
Yeah, can I get like 10 seconds?
Sure.
Okay. Well, just to go off of that, economy is increasingly getting higher. Everybody knows this. Education is increasingly getting higher. If we have to invest, we need to invest smart, and we need to invest in a way where each and every COOG at this university is being prioritized. If transportation is going to go higher, it has to be for beneficial ways. If it's for, I'm not going to say that for parking, those parking passes, I don't agree with that. Now, if it's for transportation in the buses, I will agree for that. Why? Because the way that they make parking passes at this universities and its cost is ridiculous. For one, okay.
You can wrap that thought up.
Okay,
Give 5.
just saying that for one person to pay $700 for the same parking pass and another person to pay the same amount, but both one parking lot will not even be utilized, but it costs the same amount, that's wrong. That is not something good for students at this university.
Okay. If we want to move on from transportation, then I'm going to ask about the Pullman Regional Hospital is going to place a $29 million bond on the ballot this April. Registered voters here, including students, will be asked to vote yes. However, because state law stipulates a bond can only pass if it meets a certain threshold of voters that voted in the last election, and because the last election saw record numbers of students who registered to vote here in Pullman, the bond will almost certainly need a sizable portion of students to vote yes in order for it to pass. But the repayment of the bond is assessed on local property taxes, and few, if any, undergraduates living in Pullman own property, so they aren't paying that tax. Is it fair for students to vote on this issue when the community is the one burdened with the repayment for the next decade, or do these essential services like a hospital outweigh those costs? And that we'll start with Mariella.
Yes, and I will go back to, we had the regional hospital individuals come speak to ASWSU's executive staff, and they talked about the benefits and increasing it. And it was basically like being able to increase the opportunities for students to come out to the hospital and for them to get resources and for them to go out more to the hospital. So personally, from my own knowledge about all of that information, is that it's going to help the students and it's going to help individuals who are going through issues and who need the support within the hospital. And going back, working within the community, working with the Palouse is something that we want to continue to do. Community is one of our pillars. We need to work more alongside our communities and try to find more ways where we are advocating, where we are fundraising, and we are working to make sure that we are bettering not only the lives of COOGs, but also the lives of the individuals within the community, the Palouse, because that is why we are a thing. We are a thing because of the Palouse.
Okay, Quentin?
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree completely with Mariella. We should be voting yes on this. And I think what's amazing about this, so I actually led our voter registration effort this year for ASWSU, and we got over 2,500 students to vote. And part of the reason we started that was because it's so often that Pullman has their planning, and we don't get a say in it, right? Even though we're living here, even though we're half the population of Pullman, they just look right past us. And what we've done here is because we all voted, because we all registered, because we took that step, now Pullman is actually coming to us and saying, students, what do you want? So I think this is a major step in changing the dynamic between Pullman and WSU students. Now that we've voted, and I was really proud to lead that effort because I knew this is exactly what it was going to do. It was going to give us as students more power in the planning of what does Pullman look like and what does WSU look like.
Thank you. Camille?
I will definitely agree with what everyone has been saying so far, especially that since it aligns with our pillar as well, environment and community affairs, being able to give students a choice in what is going around in this area, and maybe a few years down the road or a few months, it can also lead to a step further with more partnerships, maybe even in the Moscow area, Lewiston, Spokane, and such. So, I agree.
Okay, and Jordan?
Yes, I would have to agree as well. We're here for the majority of us. We are here 9 months out of the year, and for some of us, like me, we're here every single day of the year, and so it does affect us at the end of the day. I was also a part of registering all of those COOGs, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm proud of the progress we've clearly made in having Pullman reach out to us to ask for help. Well, not to ask for help, but to ask for guidance and to be a part of something. So yeah.
Okay. I just to get a head nod from both campaigns, then both would be supportive of this bond? Mm-hmm. Okay. As we move down into these other categories for the sake of time, these may be just directed towards the presidential side or just the VP side as we get moving here. Last week, Pullman City Council met to discuss the challenges of moving a district court to their new City Hall construction. But with safety guidelines mandated by the state for how a new courtroom should be built, this new location may become physically impractical, meaning the district court would revert back to Colfax, and students with things like parking ticket appeals, MIPs, sexual assault cases, or even those seeking temporary restraining orders would have to go to Colfax instead of Pullman City Hall. Many have said this could create a transportation barrier for some with no public transportation to get there. What should be done? Quentin, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, so I think fundamentally it's a problem, and I don't know exactly where we're at in this process of if this is finalized and there's no going back, because we need these resources. We need this courthouse to be located in Pullman, because the vast majority of cases that go to this courthouse in Whitman County are students. So I think, first of all, we need to see what we can do to try to keep it in Pullman as opposed to moving it to Colfax. If that's not possible, we need to look at some cooperation between whether it's Whitman County, the city of Pullman, and WSU, so that we can make sure that students can get to Colfax if they find themselves in that situation that they need to, because most students don't have a car. The buses don't go out there. That is a major barrier, and then the ramifications for not showing up to a court appearance can be pretty severe. So we just should not be putting any WSU students in that situation where they can't get to court when they need to.
Okay. Marielle?
I agree. I totally agree. If we don't have ways to transport individuals to the court, then why are we doing it in the first place? And going back to that, when the buses used to go from here to Moscow, students were able to, take the bus all the way to Moscow and be able to shop and all that fun stuff, and even have classes all the way at U of I. Since that bus route was stopped, students aren't able to go there, but they have classes in U of I if you're in STEM. That's a great example of how issues in the past have affected students currently, and that's something that we want to continue to work. If situations like that will prevent students from getting to a place that they need to get to, and it's something that they need to go, then we're not going to advocate for that, and we're not going to make sure that students aren't able to go to a place where they need to be at.
Okay. If we're both in agreement here, then I'll move on to the next question, if that's fine with the VPs. Okay. Now, we've heard a lot about diversity from these campaigns, and voices have shared their concerns of systemic racism, ableism, and classism that persist in our society today, and examples can be found just about anywhere to varying degrees if you look hard enough. But is this true of ASWSU? Has ASWSU demonstrated a systematic inequality of some sort? Marielle, we'll start with you.
I am one of 3 people of color on an executive staff of 15. To say that we are being represented, to say that we are representing all students is wrong, because we are not. We are not making it inclusive. We talk about how we want to not have ASWSU in a bubble. Go out to different committees. Go out to different organizations. Go to the centers. Visit them. Don't talk about it now. You should have been doing it. That's the question that we should have been asking from the beginning. Stop talking about how you want to go out now. Go. These organizations are still here. We're struggling. We need to see change. We want to see more advocacy. We want to see more students represented. We want to give opportunities, but we are not opening the doors for everybody, for all Cougs at this university. And that is why we are running. We are running to advocate for every Coug at this university.
To follow up on that, do you believe then that there is something systematically in place that is blocking?
Yes.
Can you elaborate?
When you run for these positions, and you are representing a huge population at this university, students feel that they can't apply. Students feel that they can't go and represent their own communities. We need to open the doors. We need to set a tone at this university that has never been set before. Students don't feel welcome because they don't feel that they are involved in the communities that have historically run this organization.
Okay. Quentin?
Yeah, so something I think that we should look at is that of the last 20 presidents and vice presidents, only 3 have been students of color, right? That's pretty hard to argue with and say that there aren't barriers. What is causing that? And I think that is something we really need to look at and figure out what is the problem and how can we knock down these barriers. Now, identifying those, that's a harder challenge, right? And I mean, I think that's something that all of us are looking at. How can we solve that, right? I think we need to be offering support and really looking into it and saying, how can we make sure more students are represented? Right now, a majority of the ASWSU Senate are students of color. That's a major step in the right direction. But why aren't all positions experiencing that same diversity? And I think that's something we really need to look into.
Okay. Camille?
Can I say something?
Let's let Camille, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that there is a systematic barrier within ASWSU. Sitting before you, this is not the first time Mariela and I have been in the community, and it surely isn't the last. And we definitely want to challenge ASWSU and all of the students that attend here that diversity and campus climate, everything like that, it is an issue. It is a mindset that we have settled with, but if we were on the west side, if we were in a more urbanized city, this wouldn't be a problem. There would probably be more 3 tickets of color and et cetera running. But the environment we are in, the mindset that we have settled with is something that we need to change at the core of ASWSU.
Jordan?
Yeah, so I agree. As a woman of color, it was, how do I word it? There obviously is an issue. If there's only been 3 people of color in the past, how many years we've had ASWSU as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like there are barriers we still need to break. The Senate overall, because I looked up the whole Senate and seen everybody there, and it is very diverse. However, we still do need to fill every single position, making sure that every student here is represented and feels comfortable, can feel like I identify with a person of leadership here at WSU, and making sure that everybody feels like they belong.
Okay. Mariela, did you want to respond? Okay. Well, I know it's a sensitive topic sometimes, so with that, we can move on to the next chunk of categories here, which is safety and well-being. This first question will be for Quentin. Mental health on our campus has been a major focal point in the last several ASWSU elections. What is currently being done by ASWSU, and how will you seek to improve the well-being of all on our campus?
That's a great question. So I think first talking about what's been done on ASWSU. So every single candidate has come up the last few years and said we need to prioritize mental health. And something that has always been done is they tweak the existing system. We have CAPS, right? And it allows you to go see a counselor. But I think at the end of the day, we have 1 counselor for 1,700 students. That is just not something that we can tweak and adjust to make it work for us, which is why the only solution that we have is we have to start looking outside the existing system. How can we supplement this to make sure every single WSU student has the mental health coverage they need? That's why Jordan and I, we were able to set up a system for our Greek houses so that we will be bringing down a counselor from Spokane to meet with our Greek members. But that shouldn't be something that's just available to our members of our Greek houses. That should be something that's available to all students. We know that midterms and finals weeks are the most stressful. We know those are the times that students need to see counselors. And that's why what we really want to do is bring down counselors from other areas to make sure that at those times that we know students need it the most, they can see a counselor.
Okay. Mariela?
Yes, and one of the things I will go off of that is we want to invest in peer-to-peer support groups. We want to work with administration. We've had meetings with Jamie Nolan. We talked about a few of these issues, and we talked about ways where we can use the current resources that we have and navigate them. We're not going to prioritize certain students. We have to prioritize all students and their well-being. And also the restructuring of ASWSU. One person should not focus on health and safety. That's too big. It should be separated. One person should focus on behavioral and mental health, and another person should focus on safety and climate. Those are 2 issues at this university that are very hard to tackle. And on that note, we want to work with the liberal arts department to make these resources that we currently have, the Cougar Health Services, CAPS, more welcoming. Students, when they go into those resources, they feel down, they feel depressed. To go into a plain room, we don't want that. We want to bring more recognition to our liberal arts students and find ways where we can make it a welcoming space and they could feel that the recovery process will be good.
You mentioned there that the director of, is it community and safety?
Yes, it's health and safety.
Is that something that you want to make
Yes.
a larger role?
What?
Is that something you want to make a larger role?
I want to separate them. And then
So
one
more than
focus particularly on safety and climate, and the other one focus specifically on health and wellness. And it's behavioral health as well, the beginnings of it.
So 2 separate directors?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, this next question is also mental health related, so we'll ask it to the VPs. It's now been a year since our friend Tyler Holinsky died by suicide. What action have you seen this university take since? And do you believe WSU is doing enough to address this issue? And Camille, I'll start with you.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
What action have you seen the university take since his suicide? And do you believe WSU is doing enough to address this issue?
So from my understanding, after that happened, there was the Helsinki Hope Foundation, and after that there was the Mental Health Committee. And these things have been put in place to address mental health issues and the problems that we are facing day to day. However, I feel as if it's like putting a Band-Aid on top of it. We're just dealing with students, like for example, earlier today I saw on Twitter was the 343 by the Helsinki Hope Foundation. But I think what we need to do is really focus on the core of like the beginnings right before it starts, because I'm losing my thoughts. But anyways,
Do you feel confident in what WSU is from a university? The question's more of a university.
right. On a university stance, I feel as if we need to make our resources and the programs that we have more available to all students. That way, those mental health encounters won't even happen in the first place.
Okay. Jordan?
So I would have to agree with the whole Band-Aid analogy. It's like when something bad happens and then we're all focusing on it, and then nothing really happens anymore. And so that's what Quentin and I really want to change, is making sure that we're always having this. This is always a topic of conversation. Making sure that we are always moving forward to making sure that everybody's here. All Cougs, mental health is of top priority. What we really want to do is look for outside resources, because right now when I say everybody, I mean past administrations, and what they want to do is fix the current system. But the current system is failing us. And so that's really what we want to focus on, is making sure that we're finding external systems, because internally it's just not working.
Okay. If there's no protest, I'm going to move on to the next question.
Yes. You talk about fixing the current system. Explain how, and explain how you're going to get the money to do so for every Coug on campus, because you stated that you want to bring these resources to your organizations, but your organizations are, you want to up dues to your organizations, but you can't up dues all around campus if students can't afford it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can take that. So we already did it for organizations. This is like something that we've already built so that we know that it's that. And that was kind of a big stepping stone, realizing how much easier it was. This isn't an issue that people know about on campus. This is an issue every single counseling service that we called, they said, yeah, we know about the problems at WSU. And so one of the questions you have is the funding. So where is that money coming from? We've had 3 full-time counselor positions available all year. Counselors with a PhD level education, they don't want to spend their whole lives living in Pullman. That's just a problem that we're going to face. So at the end of the day, we can't just sit here with these positions being vacant, hoping someone will eventually apply and take it. But we have that funding already available, waiting for someone to come take the position. In the meantime, let's use that funding to bring counselors in, whether it's Moscow, Lewiston, or Clarkston, or from Spokane, so that they can come in when we know the most students need that mental health coverage.
And can I say something else after that?
Short rebuttal. Yep.
How will you bring more mental health resources to underrepresented and marginalized groups at this university if they already have issues going and receiving those resources in the first place?
Well, I'll bring it back to what the original question was, and I'll just look for a straight yes or no from both. Do you think that WSU, from the administration on down, has been doing enough? Quentin?
No.
Mariella?
No.
Okay, then I'm going to move on. Earlier this year, an investigation by the Daily Evergreen found sexual misconduct involving Jason Gesser, the former quarterback. That included former WSU students and student athletes. It was reported that his alleged unprofessional and predatory behavior extended into the workplace. He resigned in the middle of a university investigation, yet many still wonder how this type of behavior could go unnoticed for so long. Do you believe a culture exists where victims and survivors of sexual assault and harassment can come forward here on this campus and this university? And if not, what needs to be done? Quentin?
Yeah, so I don't think that we have a culture that supports people coming forward. I think one of the most fundamental things that Jordan and I want to build is basically a coalition that brings all groups together. Right now, we actually had It's on Cougs as an organization designed to combat sexual assault, and it no longer exists, right? It's been merged with another ASWSU committee, and that is a complete failure on ASWSU's part, that we have not kept this as a priority, even when we see it right in front of us. Something that we need to do is we need to build a coalition that brings groups together. Originally, It's on Cougs was an ASWSU organization. We need to reach out to other groups. There's no reason we shouldn't be working with RHA, Panhellenic, IFC, UGC, and ASWSU, all of us tackling this issue together so that we can prevent sexual assault from happening in the first place and supporting survivors when it does.
Correct. Either of you, correct me if I'm wrong, but It's on Cougs was supposed to be replaced by the Cougar Safety or the Cougar Wellness Fund. What has, my question then is, what has replaced It's on Cougs? Do either of you know?
In my opinion, nothing.
Nothing?
I thought that was still under the Director of Health and Safety, but I don't think it was replaced.
I don't think so either.
Okay, and that's, for example, what are we doing? If students don't even know that this organization, this committee is still a thing, we're not working hard enough on ending rape culture at this university and advocating for the students and for our survivors and making sure that we are holding individuals accountable for their actions. We want to talk about how this is an issue. We need to work with Title IX. We need to work with advisors and administrators. Why? Because they have training every 5 years. It should be every 6 to 12 months. It shouldn't be every 5 years. If we want to continue to hold administration accountable, we have to know about these issues and we have to hold them accountable and educating the public on what this means, as well as not just sexual assault prevention, bystander intervention training. Why? Because we as students need to be there for one another. If we want to talk about Cougs Help Cougs, advocate, stand up, support one another.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
So you talked a lot about like administration needing to step up and get better training. At the end of the day, this is a problem that students need to tackle.
Cougs Help Cougs.
Agreed, right? And this
Cougs
is
help
something at the end of the day that right now, this is a problem that affects too many students. And if we try to have the administration come in and solve this, it's not gonna happen. We need this to be a student-led group that changes the culture and the way we discuss this topic on campus.
For either campaign, that I know has been a conversation that in the past ASWSU elections, for the past several years, that's been what's mainly been said, is that we need to tackle this issue. How do we make partners? How do we find a way to actually address this? Quentin, I'll let you, 30 seconds here, follow that up.
Yeah, real quick. So I mentioned we team up, we build a coalition, and if we have a representative from every single fraternity, every single sorority, and each residence hall on campus, and they all could get the training and resources they need to know, what it does is it creates a collective responsibility. Each of us right now, we have not taken the steps. We all want to see rape culture end, but can you tell me something that you tangibly have done in the last month to end that? Probably not, because that's a hard step. This isn't something you can just do by yourself, and we need to build that collective responsibility where all of our organizations are working together so that you know, yeah, that representative in my residence hall or my fraternity or sorority, they're working to solve this problem, which means so am I.
Thank you. Mariella, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay, and with the It's on Cougs campaign, they did a survey a few years ago when Kyle Strachilla and Taylor Christensen were in office. They had a survey, a safety survey, to talk about the current issues at this university and where students felt unsafe. We need to go back to that, revisit that, and talk about what we have progressed and what we need to change. We want to talk about these issues, have plans, have ideas. Bystander intervention training is something that needs to be within every organization on campus, not just within residence halls and not just within our fraternities and sororities, everywhere on campus.
I'm going to revisit the original question and again look for just kind of we can expand on this, but really looking for just a yes, no. Is there a culture here within our university that allows for victims or survivors of sexual assault and harassment to come forward? And specifically with the Gesser case, why do you think it took so long for us to find out as much as we did?
Yeah, me, Mario.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we have a culture that supports survivors enough, and I think that's part of the problem. And I think that we need to be making that a priority, that we are making it easier for survivors to come forward. I think most statistics say that a majority of sexual assaults go unreported, right? And we need to start looking at that and recognizing this is a problem. Something that we would do with this coalition is if you have someone in your fraternity, in your sorority, in your residence hall that you know is trained to handle this situation, knows the resources, you can then go to that person. Instead of filling out a form by yourself online or going to 911 or going to campus police and talking to someone you don't know, now you know that you have someone that you love and trust that is educated enough to help you through the situation so you can go to them personally and say, what's the next step? Where do we go from here?
Okay. For either of you on this side?
We need to change our culture, and that is going to be the hardest thing. We need to find a way where we can make this a space where students can come forward, can talk about their issues, and we haven't. We haven't. Why? Because student leaders in the past haven't made this their goal. This is something that we have to tackle together. And it's hard to change a culture, but we are going to work to do that. And if given the opportunity to serve, we'll work with every student leader at this university. It's hard to create a culture, but the hardest thing is to change one.
Okay, I'm going to give Jordan or Camille, either of you, would you like to add on?
I mean, I don't think that we have a supportive culture here. I feel like if elected, I'm so excited to implement this coalition because it does support survivors. Being in a position that being put in this undesirable position of something happening to you, you don't really know where to go to. You don't know who to talk to. And so if you have this support group, this supportive person, this will allow you kind of an out in that way, kind of gives you the ability to find trust in another person, and it will honestly increase the chances of reports. Because right now we have maybe 50% sexual violence reports, and this will give that said person the ability to feel comfortable enough to speak out.
Okay, Camille, did you?
I'll digress with bringing in another coalition, another committee for students to sit on this. What I'm trying to say is that we have a Senate, and we need to be able to utilize that Senate more. We could bring this to the Senate floor by legislation, resolutions, and even working closer with GPSA because they know so much, and we need to utilize that partnership more.
Okay, I'm going to move on here to take a little bit more serious turn. We're living in a chaotic time nationally for gun violence. 2018 was the worst year on record for gun violence in schools. Last month's active shooter scare at Central Washington University is a sobering reminder that none of us are immune from this horror. The social media frenzy that followed at Central created confusion and uncertainty where there was, in fact, no shooter. Do you think that we're doing everything that we can here, locally, to make our campus safe and to create a culture that is part of the solution? Marielle, I'll start with you.
Personally, to know that we got informed after this whole situation instead of during, we need to be proactive in informing the students on what is occurring. We're students. This has been an issue nationwide, and we shouldn't feel scared coming to class. We're receiving an education. It's trauma. It's a lot of trauma, and that shouldn't be right. For students to receive that email afterwards and then be updated after the whole incident when everyone on Twitter, when everybody all over social media was talking about it. People should have been informed ahead of time and when it was occurring, not hours afterwards. My personal opinion.
Quentin?
No, and I agree with Mariella on this. We get a text message saying, okay, campus is now safe when people weren't alerted that it wasn't safe to start with, right? That's a fundamental problem, and that never should have happened how it did. But I think it also goes back to the resources. Jordan talked about how do you access resources, and then also do we have good enough mental health resources on campus? Right now there's a limit. You can only see a counselor 6 times a semester, right? And if you're going through a hard time, we have got to prioritize mental health so that we know that students have the resources so that people can feel safer when they come to campus knowing that everyone's being taken care of.
Camille?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Do you think that we're doing everything that we can here locally to make our campus safe and to create a culture that is part of the solution?
I will bring up the survey that Mariela mentioned previously. What we wanted to do, so I'll say no. I don't think we are doing enough, and what we can do and what we have thought of doing, which we have brought up to administrators during our meeting, is taking that survey back, bringing it back, and asking students where do they feel least safe, where do they feel safe on campus, getting those statistics, and then partnering up with either WSU police, Pullman police, and seeing how can we increase the overall feeling of being safe and secured on this campus.
Jordan?
I would have to say no. I feel like we are not. I was actually really upset when I received the email or the text message after the fact, when there was someone on campus that was saying some threatening remarks, because that's not prioritizing students, and that's what we're here to do. Going to campus and then going to school and then coming back home, and throughout that whole day not knowing what was really going on, it was more than a little disappointing to see that we aren't proactively putting student safety first, because that is why we're here. We're here to go to school, but not only that, our safety should be our our first priority.
So what I'm hearing from both campaigns is it sounds like you want a more possibly transparent way to alert the student population in these crises. Okay. We're now moving into the leadership topic, and then following this, we're going to have an open mic period. When is a time that you managed crisis? And Quentin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Gosh, putting me on the spot here. I think,
You can say right now.
yeah, right now, yeah. No, I think, I think probably going back when I was in my childhood, when I was a lot younger, when I was 10 years old, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was just old enough to kind of like recognize the gravity of what that really meant, like the fact that my mom could pass away. And so, she ended up fighting and was an incredibly tough woman, and she, fought it, and she's been in remission for 10 years now. But I think that internal crisis of like, because, when you're a kid, you have this, this view of the world that everything is going to be okay, and that like your parents, the idea of your parents like not being there is just not something that ever comes across our minds, right? So I think probably the crisis that I dealt with was when I was young and realizing like, is my mom going to see me graduate from high school or not?
Okay. Mariella.
I think there have been many crises within my life, but I was raised by my grandmother, and something went wrong with her visa, and there were situations with her, might have been deported back to the Dominican Republic, and she's the only person I have. And to know that the one person that you have could not be there with you is hard. Sorry.
Thank you, Marielle. I want to move on and ask the vice presidents. What we saw last month, a student leader took a public stance against an otherwise unanimous vote for the baseball complex. He defied university administration and the Board of Regents. If the issue demanded it, would you be able to oppose our own institution and our own administration? And how would you handle the constraints or pushback from administrators if they didn't support your initiatives? Camille?
Repeat it one more time so that I can get my thoughts together.
If the issue demanded it, would you be able to oppose our own institution and our own administrators? And how would you handle constraints or pushback from administrators if they didn't support your initiatives?
I definitely wouldn't agree. And so the way I would go about it is that this money can go elsewhere. Like I've said previously, it can go to better equipment, better resources for our programs and our organizations on campus. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Is it okay if you can just say it one more time?
Sure, and I can come back if you'd like.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's it, I think.
Jordan, are you ready?
Yeah. So absolutely, if I was put into a compromising position like that, I would definitely take a stand, because ultimately I'm here to represent the student body. You say your initiatives as if it would, well, not as if, but my initiatives is the students' initiatives. And at the end of the day, if they're not being informed on where their money is going, or just the whole process, the direct transparency that we've been talking about, then absolutely I will take a stand.
Okay. Camille, would you like?
Yeah, just to go off of what I was saying, I would take a stance, and just to prove, like I've said before, where that money can be allocated to benefit our students, rather than spending it elsewhere.
Okay. Quentin, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've touched on it. So definitely being able to stand up for students and whatever that top priority is. But I think tying back to what I said a little earlier is, at the end of the day, if there's this divide between students and ASWSU, if there are students that don't feel like they're being represented, then it's very challenging for ASWSU to say, hey, this is what the students want, when they know that there's this divide and that ASWSU isn't speaking for all students.
Marielle?
We as students need to fight for the issues and for the issues that we want to advocate for. Generating student advocacy is one of our pillars because we want to increase that. We want to work towards building a more unified career community. And that means challenging the university when there are issues and concerns that we do not want at this university. That means challenging the universities on safety, on transportation, on education, the current issues that occur at this university. That's the whole point of getting involved in student government, is to advocate and to work for change.
Okay. I'm going to move on to former ASWSU presidents have all shared the same thing, either when they're out of office or while they're in office, that the time commitment is immense. You're a full-time student, and you would be a full-time leader if elected. How are you going to be able to handle both? Quentin?
Yeah, so I think I've learned how to handle time management. This last semester, I took 18 credits while working 50 hours in a job, and then also being a member of a fraternity and on ASWSU executive staff. So I think I realize the time commitment that I'm signing myself up for. I'm ready for it, and I think I'll be able to balance the academics with the ASWSU work.
Mariella?
Yes. So a current resident advisor, the current ASWSU co-director of diversity, inclusion, and equity, orientation counselor. I'm in a sorority as well, and to continuously sit in a lot of meetings and administrative committees. I'm also the co-chair of the cultural competency committee. So I do a lot. I've challenged myself every year to increasingly work to find ways to balance things. I get good grades on top of giving back to my family. Like, it's in order to go into these positions, you have to challenge yourself every year. Since my freshman year, I've been in leadership positions. I've went and I advocated for students. I continue to do that. Why? Because I care, and I will continue to do this. And if given the opportunity to do so, I will serve only as president.
Thank you. Jordan?
Yes, absolutely. I was working at 2 jobs at one point and doing this campaign, going to school, and as well as being involved in a sorority. Last semester, I was doing full-time student while working very intensely in an internship, as well as working and going to school, being a part of a sorority. So not only am I excited, but I am very committed to this.
Camille?
Yeah, to go along with that, we all have our share of involvements. For me personally, being involved with my sorority, just volunteering within the community, with the 3 conferences, being a Smart Start office assistant on the 4th floor, being an advocate for all students on campus, along with staying sane mentally with all the schoolwork that's being put on top of that, and sitting on ASWSU as an uncertified senator for the first time. Just being able to lead with integrity, empathy, and passion, and just doing what I love doing, which is serving students and serving the community, it'll be easy to commit myself to this position.
Well, then I'll ask this. Did any of you have any hesitations or before you decided to run about the time commitment, or were you all full steam ahead?
I was ready to go. I was really excited. I think, this is something that I realized toward the end of last semester. I was like, this is a step that I want to take. And I've been involved in all these groups so far, but I think, this is a step where I can work toward helping all students. And so the time commitment isn't something that, holds me back. I'm ready for it, and I really want to make a difference.
Okay. Do you want us to run?
Born ready.
All right. Well, this is just going to be a specific question just for you, Jordan. You have not served in the ASWSU Senate, but if elected, you would be responsible for leading the body. How do you plan to prepare for this new responsibility, and what makes you feel like you're the best for the job?
Yeah, so why I feel like I'm the best for the job is because I'm a hard worker. I've already set up a program within my sorority in the semester that I was here last semester, the mental health counseling. And so not only do I think I am qualified for this position, even if I haven't had those titles, I've worked within with my president and my vice president very closely in learning those different backgrounds of leadership styles and leadership skills, and just being more knowledgeable at the end of the day. But I'm going to tie up right back at the mental health and making sure that I've already set up this program. This is what I did. And now I just want to take it to the next level.
So you feel confident?
Yes.
Okay. And then, Mariella, this question is just for you. This time last year, you were removed from the election board by the sitting president, Jordan Frost. You were an outspoken critic of the election process. However, you disputed this by saying that you resigned before you were removed. And you claimed that the process was flawed and unfair. You said, quote, "My job was to make sure this election season was fair for both tickets, and it was not. Is it your opinion that this current election process has been fair, and will you support the outcome of the results if they aren't in your favor?"
We as students talk about holding individuals accountable, but when it comes to actually doing it, we shy away. I did something that student leaders at this university weren't doing, holding people accountable for their actions. As the RHA executive president, when students came up to me and told me, if you didn't hold individuals accountable, we're gonna unaffiliate from RHA, because the student dollars that were being used were residents' money. It's not right. When there are issues, we have to stand up and we have to advocate for one another. We have to hold individuals accountable when they are not doing their job. And I expect the same with me. Tell me what I need to do better, because I want to hear that. We are not perfect leaders. We're not. Nobody up here, nobody in this room is. But we're striving to be great. We're striving to be the best we can be, and that matters.
Do you still think that the election is broken?
Last year, it was a whole mess. I ain't gonna lie. It was a whole mess. But this year, it's about getting the petty stuff out. We are running for you. We are running to serve you and every Coug at this university. Leave the petty stuff behind. If you're running a campaign to serve students, do that. Go out there and advocate for them. Go out there and support them. Meet them somewhere. Talk about their issues and how you want to fix them. This year, it has been so much better. Why? Because we're leaving the petty stuff behind. If you care about running a good election, focus on yourself in your election and how you can work together after.
Okay. I'll do the whole question they asked Trump and Hillary. Are both of you going to support the election results, no matter what they are?
Unless there's some egregious violation that we haven't found yet, absolutely. If Mariella and Camille win this election, then they are going to be your next president, vice president. We would wish them the best, and hope that we could help them in some way as well.
Same. I do.
Okay. Well, both of you did something bigger than our president never did, so congratulations. ASWSU has suffered through high staff turnover throughout the years. What can be done to make a commitment to student leadership a more permanent choice for student leaders? Mariella?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. ASWSU has suffered through high staff turnover throughout the years. What can be done to make a commitment to student leadership a more permanent choice for student leaders?
Definitely. And I think it goes back to, why do we get involved? I said this from the beginning, and I will always say this. I decided to come back to WSU because I found a way to give back. I found my home away from home. And that's why a lot of students come back, because they find that community. They find that support system. We need to continue to offer that. If ASWSU has been having a bad turnover, it's because it's not welcoming enough students. Students from all different communities should be holding positions. That way the representation, the retention, continuously increasing that throughout the years actually occurs. Within our ASWSU committees, it's perfect. Students continue to apply for those, to run for those positions. Advocating more for these student committee leaders to run for executive positions, because this administration is there for them too. They are the reasons why we're so great at what we're doing, and we're gonna continue to do great things, why we're advocating for them and stuff like that. Sorry, I know we only have 4 seconds, okay.
You're good. Quentin?
Yeah, so I think it really ties back. A lot of times what Jordan and I have talked a lot about is the divide between students and ASWSU, and students not knowing what ASWSU does, right? You don't feel represented. You don't feel like it's doing something for you or bettering your college experience. At the same time, that goes both ways. You know, there are a lot of really passionate ASWSU people that are working really, really hard, and they don't feel like they're appreciated, right? Because there's this divide between students and ASWSU. So I think the biggest thing for us is if we can bridge this divide so that students feel like they're being represented, it allows ASWSU leaders to work hard and feel and see the results that they're actually making an impact on students' lives. So I think we talk about turnover. We need to make sure that ASWSU people feel like they're really making a difference.
Okay. I'm going to ask this question to the VPs first. If elected, you're going to be the sole representative, one of two, to nearly 20,000 students, undergraduates. Do you believe you can handle that kind of pressure? And Jordan, I'll ask you first.
Yes, absolutely. A large part of our job, if elected, is having the ability to listen. Just being able to have a presence and be a leader that another person can come to and talk to. And so I feel like I have those qualities. I feel like I am prepared to listen and to then take that criticism or those different opinions and really put them into action here at WSU.
Okay. Camille?
With that, I just want to state that as being a first-generation Filipino-American student at this university and carrying that sense of labor and pressure on my back for a very long time, pressure is nothing new to me. One of the few projects I would like to work on, especially being the head of Senate, is really preparing our senators to make sure that they feel prepared, knowledgeable, and confident to create legislations and resolutions, so that way they feel empowered, inspired, and it'll manifest into something even greater and something that ASWSU has been missing out on.
Okay. Quentin?
Could you repeat the question for me?
You're going to be potentially the sole representative to nearly 20,000 students. Do you believe you can handle that kind of pressure?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited for it, honestly. I think that's something that we need to do is I want to be approachable, right? I want to make sure that ASWSU isn't off in their bubble in the third floor of the Cub anymore. I want to break that and make sure that we can represent all students and that students, no matter which background they come from, can come approach ASWSU and say, this is a problem I'm having on campus. Can you help me solve this? And I think that is the biggest thing right now is we represent 17,500 undergraduate students, yet most of those students don't feel like ASWSU is doing enough for them or able to hear their issues and respond to them. So I think that's the biggest thing is not only do we want to, I'm ready for that situation, I want to expand it and make sure that more students feel represented.
Can I rebuttal?
What's that?
Can I rebuttal?
Absolutely. 30 seconds.
What have you done during your campaign trail to make sure that you are expanding ASWSU and what you have to offer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've reached out to every single UGC, National Panhellenic, IFC, and Panhellenic organization trying to get our foot in the door. We have an amazing person that has been scheduling us to go speak with RSOs and different groups. We sent over 200 emails to different student groups trying to go speak, because at the end of the day, the way we bridge that divide is by speaking with the most groups. If we can get in and talk to students, make sure they know who we are and that we know who they are, that allows us to have that conversation about what can we do for you as ASWSU to make your WSU experience better.
Thank you. Did you want to follow up? Mariella, you still had that minute that you can use if you'd like.
Well, I'm just going to go to my prior experience. I was the executive president of the Resident Hall Association. I represented over 5,400 students living within the residence halls. I managed over $150,000 in money. And the year before that, I was the vice president of programming. So I, again, held programs for that entire community and continuously advocated. I've worked with PACUR with over 50 universities across the nation. I've continuously been in positions where I work with a lot of student leaders and students at this university to continue advocating, to continue pushing, and finding more ways to help students at this university, even if it's on committees. I've sat on the transportation committee. I've sat on the parking committee. I've sat on 12 administrative committees. Why? Because I care. I care about advocating for the students, and I care about making sure that we are making progress as an organization. And going off of that, 17,000 students. If you are running, having that experience in different communities will help with finding a way to build a bridge.
Okay. That is a good transition then into this next question. If you're being completely honest with yourself, how will holding this position help your resume? Essentially, what do you want to do after college that this position will help you be better at? And Marielle, I'll start with you.
I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because I can create change. And that's what I like about it. I already have been involved. I really have. I don't care about the involvement. I care about doing things, advocating for people, going out there and finding ways that we can change this administration, because I've continuously talked to too many student leaders in this administration and nobody has helped me. Nobody has done something. When you talk about ASWSU committees and nobody from executives besides Jerry and I go out to these representatives and go out to these committees, that's an issue. Everybody within ASWSU should be working towards diversity and inclusion and welcoming the entire Cougar community into this administration and into this organization. And that hasn't been done.
Okay, Quentin?
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm not smart enough for law school. So like this is not a big resume builder
You and me
for
both, brother.
So honestly, I think really, I wanna do this in the same way that Mario's talking about. This is for change, right? This is saying that mental health services on campus are broken. And this is something that Jordan and I were able to work toward and fix in our 2 Greek chapters, and now we wanna make sure that we can fix it campus-wide for all students. And I think that's what this is really about for me, is making sure that we can solve problems that we come in here every single year and say, this is something that's a problem, we're gonna fix it, and yet every single year we're still back here at square one saying it again. And I think it's time we finally solve these problems so that students aren't constantly concerned about whether they're gonna be able to see a counselor or not, or whether they're gonna be safe or not. These are things that shouldn't be every single year's topic. These should be things that people solve, and that's really why I'm running.
Okay, how about this? Because the question was kind of designed to try and learn a little bit about yourselves personally. Tell us what you're studying and what you want to do post-grad. We'll go down the line. Jordan,
What was that last part? You said
what you want to do after graduation?
Okay.
Professionally.
Well, what I'm studying right now is pre-law political science track, and then afterwards I want to be a lawyer.
Okay.
So I'm studying political science, and I think after I graduate, based on my experiences registering students to vote, what I would love to do is work for a nonprofit that focuses on increasing political involvement among marginalized groups. The groups that aren't as involved in the democratic process, and helping them, this is how you vote, this is the process you take, and helping them get more involved.
Camille?
I'm studying business management with a minor in political science, and so with that I hope to go back home to Hawaii and really maybe open up a business, but if not, I definitely would like to work closely with the Capitol, because I've had an internship there prior to coming here, and being able to work closely with legislators and really build up my credibility and hopefully run for political office back home in Hawaii.
Okay. Mariella?
Sorry, I'm a comparative ethnic studies major with a minor in communications, and I really, really, really want to get into grad school at UC Berkeley. I know, I'm so excited. Well, hopefully if I get in. And on top of that, I want to work for a university on whether it's student affairs, whether it's academic affairs, and I want to continue to find ways to increase retention rates within our marginalized and underrepresented groups and communities across the nation. It doesn't matter what university I work at, but hopes of that. And then I want to work at a nonprofit for a little bit, Yeah, I have goals, I really do. And then one day, hopefully, run for Congress, because at the end of the day, if you have a dream, go for that. Never forget that, okay? Achieve your dreams. It doesn't matter if it's out there or if it's short or anything. Go out there and, never be afraid to pursue your dreams.
Okay, I'm going to push you on this, though. If you do get into grad school, are you ever going to put anything on that resembles a Cal Berkeley bear? Is it going to be all crimson gray, or are you gonna switch sides on us?
We'll talk about it one-on-one, okay? We'll talk about it one-on-one, okay?
All
I'm
right.
from Alaska. Come on, we have some connection, okay?
Yeah.
Well, raised in Alaska, okay? So,
What, are you taking a shot at me now? I'm the moderator. Okay, we're going to open up to open mic period here. So there are mics dotted around. We've got, I believe, towards the middle and off here to the far right. So once you... We're going to start on the left side here, that left mic. Proceed in an orderly fashion. All right, you, sir, with the white T-shirt, we'll go ahead and have you introduce yourself, and then try and everybody please keep your questions short, and let's try and make it available to both campaigns, both tickets to be able to respond to.
Hi. Okay, this is on, right? Everyone can hear me? Okay. So my name is Michael Young. I major in Chinese and Japanese. I have a lot of associations with the foreign language department. I wanted to ask you, recently the foreign language department was merged with into a new school called the School of Languages, Race, and et cetera, basically. And essentially what that did is it cut the budget for the foreign language department by quite a lot. What I wanted to ask you guys is, as individuals, what would you do for important departments such as the foreign language department that have been put on the back burner and been marginalized towards other majors such as STEM, etc.?
When I first heard of this issue happening earlier this year, it honestly disheartened me because we're here for an education. And if we're offering these majors and these classes, then we need to be making sure that we are having faculty and staff that are there to teach these curriculums. With that, Mariela is as Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity, switch those titles around, but it's okay. She worked with a multicultural fundraiser, the Multicultural Banquet. And so what we really wanted to do is try to see how can we increase funding from outside partnerships, from the university, from donors from alumni that donate to the university, and encourage them that this is an issue that's happening on campus and we need to be able to have the funding to support it. Because if we're not going to increase our retention rates within these majors as well, then why are we offering them in the first place?
I'll give your guys' campaign a minute to respond.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and this gets back to it, I'm gonna be real with you, I didn't know that exact thing happened, but I think the big problem that we have here, tying it back, is students, we don't have a big enough say in this decision making, right? This was something that administration, we probably had a seat at the table and we were there watching it happen, but when we said this is a problem that affects too many students, we didn't get listened to, right? And for us to solve that and be able to stand up and say, no, this is a problem that's gonna affect too many students, we can't do this. We have to have a unified student body that is standing behind ASWSU, making sure that the administration knows that, hey, we're gonna hold you accountable, and if you aren't doing what's in the best interest of the students, then that's gonna be a fundamental problem.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to the far right side here. That slick denim jacket.
You're welcome.
Hey, Andrew.
Yeah, so I keep hearing rhetoric on how we're going to help all Cougs. A group that I haven't heard a lot talk about is particularly young men. Drugs on this campus are rampant through our community, particularly in the IFC community and things like that. There's been a lot of drug issues, and I think there's a lot of people that have poor coping mechanisms, particularly young men. How can you help educate people on, possibly healthy coping mechanisms? And that person at a party who is super hammered and things like that, they think they're having the greatest time, when in reality that person's hurt. How do we help those people?
Can I go?
Absolutely.
Okay. And just to go off of that, we have a lot of these resources at this university, like it's the drink, the alcohol, what's that? Beers, what? Booze, sex, and reality check. There we go.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about booze, and we talk a lot about being effective and efficient on how we take care of one another and of ourselves within alcohol, but not a lot on drugs and how this is bad at this university. Working with the current resources that we have, restructuring them and navigating them on how to be more effective in that spectrum is something that we need to look into, and we need to help, and we need to revamp. So every student at this university not just gets education on how to be aware on I don't drink. I'm so sorry, y'all. What is that word? Instance, like when they drink and
Inebriation?
substance
Abuse?
But also on, I know, I'm like, I don't even drink. But also
Running up on
on
time.
drugs and the effects of that at this university.
Your guys' campaign?
So actually, we kind of got, when we were going out and campaigning, I think it was one of the RSOs that we were going to, they actually asked us a question about our mental health resources and how we are going to tackle the issue of drug abuse and substance abuse. And so basically, we identify that there are problems on campus that we don't, that's a topic that we don't really hear a lot from. I agree. And we really want to tackle that with our mental health, making sure that we're narrowing the focus on, because overall this is a mental health problem, and making sure that we're having those resources available. And it's like Quentin and I have been saying this whole time, it's making sure that ASWSU is putting those resources available for others to grab, and making sure that students know where to access them as well.
Okay. I'm going to go to this side of the room, try and keep these questions short, and then candidates, if we can try and keep our answers brief as well.
Hello, I'm Rick Flores, a senior humanities major here on campus. As a biracial student, I understand it could be difficult going to multicultural events on campus, but can you tell me what multicultural student events you've all attended before your campaign started, and with which groups you've met with?
Who wants to take this first?
I can start. So I can tell you, I didn't attend a whole lot of multicultural events. I was the president of Young Democrats. And so I spent the majority of my time focusing on responding and trying to block out the hatred that the college Republicans spewed. That was what I focused on. The college Republicans make a lot of students feel very unsafe and unwelcome here. And I felt like my role as the president of Young Democrats was to try to counter that and make sure that every student feels welcome on campus regardless of their background. So I can tell you I didn't go to a lot of events, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't focusing on it and making it a priority, is making sure that all students here on campus felt safe and felt welcome.
So I will go ahead and tackle your question. In the past, I have been helping with Shaping and Cash. For Shaping, I was a team leader twice, and for Cash, I was a volunteer. I'm a member that goes to APASC and METRA regularly, and even though I can't really make it to BSU, I do try to go to events and show my support by retweeting or reposting things that are going on. For example, like the Crimson Group, they also had their fundraiser at the beginning of this year with the zoo, and I definitely had a great time over there supporting for a great cause. I've also been involved with Filipino American Student Association, Pacific Islanders Club, Hawaii Club, Association of Pacific Asian Women, Mitamitanga o Samoa, and so I've really been in the community, and it's not the first time that I will be in the community.
Because we have more folks on my left side here, why don't we go ahead and have another question on that side?
All right, could y'all hear me? Yeah, cool. All right, cool. So we heard a lot of talk today about students, about representing all students and what that means and stuff like that, but there's obviously a heavy bias towards students who are from residential fraternities and sororities. There is a bias towards students who are from organizations that are predominantly white. That's something that's plagued ASWSU for years, and that's something that the multicultural community is kind of fed up. So this question goes for both tickets, is how are both of you gonna equally represent multicultural communities, whether you're part of it or not, and how is your campaign diversifying your efforts, whether it be through sponsorships, whether it be through going to student organizations? How are you making sure that you're actually being part of the community and you're just not claiming it just to get votes?
Who would like to respond first?
I'd love to respond first, actually. So I'm a part of Kappa Alpha Theta, which is residential Greek as well. It is a predominantly white sorority. And so basically going through recruitment, it was actually really hard for me. I'm a biracial, half black, half white. And so going through it, it was predominantly white, and not being able to identify with anyone really bothered me. It hurt me. I felt like I couldn't find a place where I belonged, but I kept going, and it was really mentally and emotionally challenging. And so at the end, however, at the very last day, I met an amazing woman she ended up being my big, but she's half white and half Latina. And so she was really able to kind of guide my way through WSU, actually. We identified on a lot of different aspects, and so actually after that, I was like, hey, I want to run for recruitment chair. I want to be one of those first 2 individuals up when you're like introducing people into your house. I wanted to be one of the first people that minorities who are rushing Panhellenic can see and can be like, I identify with her. I feel like I belong in here, in this house. And so basically that's what I want to do on a bigger scale. I want to make sure that all of our incoming freshmen see someone of color and see that I identify with them. I belong at this campus because I see someone who can represent me.
And your campaign?
Yeah, okay. Can you repeat the question? I'm so sorry. Oh, wait. Oh, no, I remember now. Okay. Sorry. I'm actually Afro-Latina. I'm one of the very few Puerto Rican Dominicans at this university. I speak Spanish, English. I know sign language. I'm like, wow. And it's pretty out there, but I have made it my duty to, I feel uncomfortable at times because I represent two communities at this university, and I don't always know how to provide 100% of both. But understanding that being uncomfortable and learning how that feels is something that will help us as individuals grow. We need to be able to bring in our Cougar community to come together. I'm a sister of Alpha Nu Multicultural Sorority Incorporated, and we have made it our duty to do socials with not only organizations within our community, but outside. We've had socials with Tri-Delts. We've tried to do socials with other organizations outside of the multicultural and historically black organizations at this university. And that shows you that we want to build our Cougar community, especially our Greek communities, to come together. Why? Because we're all Greeks. We're all founded on values that we live, that we want to uplift each one another off of. And that's something that we can relate to as well.
Okay.
Can I add something, Zach?
You know what? We're running short on time, so keep it brief.
Okay, so something I just wanted to add to is you mentioned a lot of the Greek representation on campus, and I think it's very true that residential Greeks are the most visible, right? Most students see it. But one of the problems that I think we see with that, though, is that a lot of issues that face students in the Greek community, they're labeled as Greek issues, whether it's a substance abuse or it's something else. And I think what we really need to start transitioning is that Greek issues are student issues too. We shouldn't cast this off as a separate side of saying the students in the Greek community deal with these problems, they're Greek issues. No matter what background you come from, if you are a WSU student and you're experiencing issues, we need to make sure that we are treating those as student issues that ASWSU should be addressing.
Okay.
Can I say something
Absolutely.
after that? I just wanted to say that I think people aren't hearing. This happens everywhere. Safety issues Greek issues are everywhere, but we're not hearing the multicultural and the historically black issues. Why? Because they're not being heard. We are continuously talking about these issues, but they're not being heard. Yes, the entire Greek community is stereotyped. And that's the thing we have to talk about. Not just say that only residential Greeks are being stereotyped. Multicultural and historically black Greeks are being stereotyped too. That isn't brought into the conversation. We are not speaking about those issues as well. It's everybody's issues at these universities, but we want to pick and choose who we hear.
Okay. I'm going to ask the candidates in your responses to these audience questions, try and keep it closer to 30 seconds now so we can get through these folks. We'll go to my right side here.
Hi, my name is Luke Hudson. I'm a sophomore journalism student, and my question is for both campaigns. Throughout the debate, you've agreed with each other quite a bit on issues and solutions to those issues, from mental health to transparency to transportation issues. So how can you promise that a vote for you is distinct from a vote from your opponent?
Who would like to
I
answer?
can go ahead and answer that.
Sure.
Mariela and I have very similar stories since we've been here at WSU. We have always been present in the community. We have always been serving merely because we want to. And the people who have really influenced us to take this next leap, it really gave us the confidence that, like, wow, like, we can really do this. We are two women. No. Anyways, we are two candidates that are the type of leaders that do whatever it takes, that make sure that if to be given the honor to be elected, we would be sure to leave these positions with tangible things to carry on.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So basically what Quentin and I bring to the table that is different is that new idea, that new perspective. Quentin's a transfer student, and I'm not in that ASWSU. And we bring up a lot of the times this ASWSU bubble and how it's the same cycle of the same, there's always, so with mental health, for example, this ASWSU comes in, they're like, we have a problem we need to fix. And each year, we're still addressing the same problem because it's the same cycle that happens over and over. The same people who are in ASWSU from the jump and don't ever really branch out, don't really ever get out of that bubble.
Okay.
And so that's what Quentin and I really bring that's different, is that new perspective, that fresh ideas
Thanks,
to the
Jordan.
table.
Okay. Did I
Thank
answer
you
your
both.
question? Okay, we'll go to this side of the room.
Hello, my name is Joel Alaman, first year computer science major. And so I hear a big focus on, from both campaigns about mental health. As a STEM student, especially in computer science, the mental health outreach is very stigmatized, seeing how heavy the workload is. So for those students who are third year, fourth year, who don't really see the light of day very often because they're stuck with assignments, how do you plan to reach out for such students who the reach out for mental health is such a stigma?
Who would like
That's
to
a great.
respond?
What's that?
Would you like to respond?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. I think one of the biggest flaws that we have is our communication doesn't reach enough students, right? And we can't even begin to start talking about changing stigma if we don't have a way of reaching students that need to see this change, right? So I think it really starts with our communications plan, right? Making sure that our comms team is getting to as many students as possible, because I don't think we've had enough outreach. I will say our comms for ASWSU, it puts out incredible content. I don't think that's a problem. I think the problem is a lot of students don't see it, right?
Okay.
And so that's really what we want to change.
Thank you. 30 seconds over here.
We just want to speak back to our peer-to-peer support groups, and students aren't always going to go out to these resources. We know that students don't go out to these resources. As much as we advertise, as much as we try to support and tell individuals where these resources are, they don't go to them. So finding a way where we could utilize the current resources that we have and the students who have went through the recovery process to provide that support and to provide the opportunity for them to feel that that they themselves can go through that recovery process too is something that we want to work towards as well. And we want to make sure that every COOG at this university gets support,
Okay.
even if they don't go and receive those resources.
Thank you. Did that answer your question? Okay, we'll go to this side of the room.
What's up, y'all? My name is Ricardo Aquino, and I'm one of the committee chairs for Metro at WSU. So my question is basically a lot of things that my committee does and other committees under ASWSU do. It's kind of like trickle down through where we get information from executive board or the Senate. We kind of pass that information down or those resources down. But at times it does feel kind of stressful where we feel like there's a disconnect between ASWSU and the committees under it. So my question is, what are some things that you will do to help committee chairs and their committees to succeed in terms of accessibility to resources like, I don't know, an office space to work in, stuff like that?
And that starts with, we have committees within ASWSU that are there to advocate for students too. Why don't they feel comfortable coming to the office? We need to change that. We need to make ASWSU a welcoming space for every student at this university so they could come and ask and talk about their issues, work to have solutions towards them. And not only that, make the ASWSU office a welcoming space, which is not. Yes, it is a bubble. And it's the individuals who have showcased and went to other committees and went to other organizations,
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
You just wrap up the thought.
Sorry. The individuals who have broken that bubble, we need to give them recognition. We need to talk about that. We need to talk about the students who do go out to these committees, who don't just stay in the office. We're not there to just talk to one another. We're there to advocate for the students, and that's what we need to continue to do. Get out of that bubble.
Okay.
Go out. Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
This campaign.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is listening, right? I think that a lot of times there's a divide where people get elected and they feel like their job is done now that they've finished their campaign, and I think that's a mindset that we need to break, right? You know, we aren't going to pretend that we know everything that each committee chair needs to succeed in their job, and I think that's where we need to establish a good relationship from day one, sitting down saying, okay, how can we support you, right? What can we do to tangibly make your job easier and make you more successful?
Okay.
Thank you both.
We've got enough time for about 2 more. So if you guys want to maybe decide, and you know what, after the debate ends tonight, the candidates will stick around, so you can ask your questions after the debate as well. We'll go over to this side of the room.
I'm going to go, guys. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, so I think you guys have both provided a lot of really good ideas on both sides, but what I'm most interested in is your ability to execute ideas. So can each campaign give me 2 concrete ways that you plan on holding yourself accountable to your campaign promises, and then 1 way that you plan on communicating your accomplishments to students?
30 seconds here.
I can go first if you want me to. I think first thing is there will be a coalition built between a bunch of different organizations on campus to combat sexual assault that changes the culture on campus and supports survivors more than the current system. I think second, we are going to address the mental health crisis. We are going to bring counselors from outside to make sure that students can get the counseling they need at the times in the semester that it is the most stressful. Those two changes are what we want to walk away saying, this is how we changed WSU and this is how we made the experience better.
So we'll split it. You do one, I can do one, okay? But basically, for one of the things that we want to do is restructure the positions within ASWSU currently, so students at this university who have not been in the conversation feel that they're being advocated for. For example, we want to bring in a residence life and dining services. We want to separate health and safety and separate them. One to focus on safety and climate, one to focus on health and wellness, and tackle issues that we currently want to tackle, whether it's bystander intervention training. And we've met with administrations. We've emailed Kirk Schultz. We've emailed Mary Jo. We've had meetings with Jamie Nolan.
Okay.
We want to do this. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, and then one way that you plan on communicating your accomplishments to students each week.
What was that?
We have also, in our action plan, we have a newsletter that we want to implement. And we've talked to GPSA on how they run their newsletter and how we can have an effective newsletter that isn't so heavy on students and student leaders at this university. And the website, yes, everybody always talks about being more transparent with budgets and finances. We've already spoken to administration. We know what we want to do. We want to have a transparent administrative budget, and we know what we will do if given the opportunity to serve on implementing that within our website and making it more accessible to students to access. We're not just saying it. We know that we will work with administration to do it.
Thank you. We have time for one more audience question.
There's a great deal of passion in the room tonight from both parties, and both are excited and ready to do the job necessary. But the question I have is, what cold, hard steps have you done or will you do to be the change that you want to see here at WSU?
I mean, can I? Okay.
Yep.
I think one of the things that I'm truly grateful and have been given the opportunity to do is serve in the position of as ASWSU Co-Director of Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity. I sit on a lot of committees and I do a lot of things, but one of the things that I've currently been working on, I'm the co-chair of the Cultural Competency Committee, and we're working on doing a university-wide training around social justice, and that is something that students at this university have had continuous issues with, and it's something that I'm very proud to have been given the opportunity to do and to serve on, and that is something that I could say that I generally believe that will help make change at this university to educate students and so on.
Quentin.
So for me, I registered 2,500 students to vote. That was a project that I started, and I found volunteers that were down to do this, and basically we built something that had never been done before. On top of that, Jordan and I, we brought mental health professionals to our Greek houses already. This plan that we have for all students, we've already shown it can be implemented. This is something we can do because we've already done it on a smaller scale already. So I think those cold, hard things, I've registered students to vote, and we have already started the first step in bringing counselors here to campus.
Okay. Well,
Thank you very
I
much.
apologize to those folks that are still at the mics. We're going to have to give both campaigns 2 minutes for closing remarks, and then we will conclude the debate, but these candidates will stay around so you can ask your questions after. So I apologize, but we are out of time. Want to remind everyone that voting will open Tuesday at midnight, and it will close Wednesday at 7 p.m. And that is online at studentvote.wsu.edu. All right, because Quentin, you won the coin toss and you got the first question, the beginning of the closing remarks will go to your campaign. You have 2 minutes, and both of you can use it however you'd like.
Definitely. Okay, so just to tell you a little bit more about ourselves that way, because there's a lot of new faces, but my name is Mariela Frias, and I'm a current junior studying comparative ethnic studies with communication. I've served on various administrative committees. I have continuously had leadership roles within residence life, within ASWSU, within the current sorority that I'm in, and I will continue to advocate and represent students at this university even after the elections.
Yeah, standing aside Mariela has really uplifted let me get my thoughts together. So as two candidates that are eager, ready, we have the connections, we have the experiences. The issues of our past do not have to be the issues of our future. And together with our platform, we can definitely imagine a better WSU, and we can create it and we can make it a reality.
And with that, we want to ask you one question. What do you imagine at WSU? Think about it. Do you imagine a more welcoming place for every student? Do you imagine a place where students feel represented within ASWSU? Do you imagine an opportunity where every COO can come to the table and feel that ASWSU is there for them? Because we do. We need to be proactive. We need to figure out a way to make this university welcoming for every COO. It's not just about imagining, it's also about creating it. And we need your help to do it. We need to start now. We need to set a tone that has never been set before. In order to change this culture, we have to create one even better.
Okay. And your closing remarks.
I think it's time that we stop accepting that ASWSU is just that thing that exists during election season, right? Too many students have no idea what ASWSU is working on. No, they don't know what it does, and that's something that we have to change. And if you vote for Jordan and I and we are elected, what we want to do is we want to work harder, collaborate with more groups, focus on the issues that directly affect all students. Mental health is a crisis right now. And if we can bring more counselors to campus to ensure that students can see the counselors they need at the times of the semester that it's the most pressing, that is a tangible change that ASWSU can make so that all students can feel like my student government has done something for me this semester. Right now, sexual assault is something that we don't prioritize enough. This is an issue that we pay attention to when it's in the news. And then all of a sudden it falls out of the news and we stop talking about it. This needs to be a priority that we push for the entire school year. And not only that, it can't be it's on Cougs where it's a priority for a year and then it falls apart. If we build this coalition with groups from all different branches of campus, all of a sudden what we're looking at is an organization that can change the culture over the long term and support survivors right away, that can make tangible changes on campus so that everyone knows that ASWSU is supporting you and is representing you as a student government.
Absolutely. And then not only that, but we're bringing fresh ideas, new perspectives to the table. We're breaking that ASWSU bubble that has been consistent, has been here for years, honestly. And what Quentin and I really bring to the table is making sure that the priorities that students have, we have them too. We are putting ourselves out there. We're making ourselves presentable to students and being approachable, being of a leader who an average student can come to and express concerns. And so a vote for us would mean of new ideas, new perspectives, and being able to be a leading figure that someone can talk to.
Okay. Well, I want to thank both of you campaigns because I know how much effort it takes and dedication this past month that you've been out there every single day fighting for what you believe in. So I think that this room deserves a round of applause for our candidates. I want to wish you both the best of luck. Again, voting is going to begin Tuesday night at midnight is when the online ballot will open. That concludes the debate tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. We hope everyone gets home safe. Go Cougs.
Don't forget to get programming credit and make sure to stay tuned on social media for polling sites. Thank you.